Hi there, my name is Andrew Domachowski. I'm a senior concept artist and illustrator in the film, television, and game industry. I'm currently working on the brand new Flash movie as well as other various game titles. Welcome back to the tutorial. So here I've put the rendered image into Photoshop, and you can see there I had a filter on top, and yeah, you can see there's two different renders. I wanted the bike to have a bit more of an angle, so I rendered a different one out, and you can see with that quick cloud brush, I just put in some atmosphere, some smoke, and you can see I isolated her body and just kind of bumped up the value and increased the saturation, and then did the same for the hair, and then desatted that. And yeah, the filter on top. So here's the interesting thing. I rendered out with curves, and so I actually tried to get back to a neutral state. So I had to reconfigure the curves, and then yeah, and then on top I just added a bunch of different curve layers, kind of put the image in a cool setting. Here I just grabbed a model I liked her face, and I'm kind of putting it in here. And what I like to do usually is I drop the photo reference by like 50 to 60% opacity. That way I'm getting that detail of the photo, but I'm letting the underlying structure of the 3D still show through. And for me personally, I just like that blend. Yeah, here I'm trying out sort of a braid detail from that same model. I kind of, it looked cool in the photo, but I don't end up using it just for what I'm getting after. There's going to be quite a bit of adjustment that I'm going to be doing with her face. It's nice, but it doesn't read perfectly. Yeah, you'll see I'll be making mistakes here. I'm just trying to figure things out. Again, even in this realm, I'm still trying to have fun. I'm still trying to enjoy myself and yeah, figure out the design. I'm really designing in this process. And here I'm a little bit thinking, man, I wish I spent just a bit more time in that sketch phase. But sometimes it's hard to know. It's hard to know how things are gonna look. You can draw things out to your heart's content, or at least for me, I can draw things out to my heart's content, and it looks fine in black and white sketch, but then it just doesn't quite feel right when you get into pushing it to realism. So sometimes I like looking at photography, putting those textures down, and then especially with the face, I see it as a benchmark for, okay, what kind of detail, what kind of world this thing is going to live in. And then because the face has a high fidelity and it's a benchmark, I'll refer back to it for every single bit of the painting. And you can see that there's some lovely details in that jacket there, which I'll be utilizing quite a bit. And yeah, the process is going to be a mixture of painting, drawing, and applying some photo textures on top. And you can see with that shoulder pad, I just, with the curves, I might have actually rendered out two different material passes and just kind of masked it out. Super simple. And yeah, it's the same thing as the 3D. If I can get away with applying just paint to indicate the form, like if it's not really catching light, then if it's kind of living in those mid-tones, I can kind of get away with paint strokes to indicate the forms. Yeah, I really like those textures from the jacket. Pretty interesting. Here I'm trying to figure out this part of her breast, and just trying to find something that fits the form. In the movie, yeah, it sort of reveals. It's pretty interesting the way it's designed. So I'm just taking cues from that. The buttocks and the breasts, they're revealed in an interesting way, and that it's quite sexual and interesting. That part feels pretty heavy metal to me, at least in the movie. And I'm just trying to indicate a elbow pad there. Originally I was thinking maybe it would be attached by straps, but then, you know, thinking about the armor that motorcycle racers wear, it's all attached in one unit. Yeah, it was a almost painstaking process trying to get the right photo reference, but I'm very thankful I did, because now I can get into a really flowy state, and I'm not constantly searching on Bing or Google to find the appropriate reference. And yeah, throughout time I've collected quite a bit of reference, and I just have it in my pictures folder on my computer, and before this I was just going through it. I think I spent quite a bit of time just seeing whatever I could use. I didn't necessarily Google anything. Because I have just so much from prior projects, so I should probably catalog it better though. Yeah, wrinkles you can't really mess with. There's certain things that photos just help a lot to indicate form. I mean, you could spend time painting it, but folds in particular, wrinkles, are things I like to just photos help a lot with that, to make it look a bit more realistic, make it look like what it actually is. Just trying to make that face fit a little better. Here's a nice rim light detail for her arm. And yeah, just trying to think of ratios the same way. That 80-20 rule, just think about how the textures will play off each other. I don't want to have one more overbearing than the other. And yeah, even for things like seams, especially seams, that fine detail, something I'll definitely use photos for. Here I'm just indicating quick details in the gun, trying to figure out a bit, and oftentimes I'll just flick on that filter that I have on the top. I think it's about 6 or 7 different curves, or maybe a color lookup layer, and when I turn it on, I'm just trying to see if what I'm designing, what I'm putting down, fits the mood. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the ribbing near the butt area, but it just doesn't. I was trying to make it work, but it just wasn't feeling quite right. I think I was just drawing too much attention. I don't want the whole entire piece to be about that. And, because the movie had both the butt and the breast area kind of a focus in a way, I thought of doing the same, but it just ended up looking too much. Yeah, this leg part is tricky. Sometimes I automatically think, oh yeah, for sure, I'll just add detail. That's what makes it look cool. But oftentimes it's, again, less is more. For now, it's just fine. You can see here, I'm just trying to get rid of that area. At least the ribbing wasn't working for what I wanted. I sort of have more of a horizontal type clip. I just imagine the munitions would be quite different. And yeah, there I'm just painting over the hair real quick. I have a sort of flat elliptical mixer brush. I love using the mixer brush. It just helps retain the detail in strokes, and very quickly I can sculpt forms. You have to understand, this is looking pretty horrendous to me. I mean, it's just so weird having the blaring 3D in the background, especially my, little shoddy 3D. So I'm just, I'm trying to keep it cool and understand that it'll look better. And you can see there, I'm using a texture brush just to remove that 3D bump. And that head was feeling a bit too big. I'm sure the proportions are fine in the DAZ model, but it just wasn't feeling right for the scene. And yeah, using that same mixer brush just to resolve the forms a bit more. I just felt like that shoulder pad needed a bit more texture. It would have just felt weird if it was a smooth material, so I've opted to apply it to the black value of the shoulder pad. And her hair is obviously shorter from the movie, but I found that when I was experimenting with short hair in this sketch, it just wasn't... She wasn't reading, or at least it wasn't exciting me as much. And I just like that kind of rocker Viking hairstyle. Just feels a bit more heavy metal to me. Yeah, I'm just playing around with that glove. I'm obsessed with 80s, 90s tech. Like that boombox. It's really cool. Oftentimes I'll use a smudge brush that's totally hard on 100%, and it just helps to kind of slide details, like you see what I just did there. Just took that one piece, and that's a cool little trick. Yeah, same thing with that smudge brush and putting some texture down. I want the barrel to read more as a hero, the hero segment of the gun. And so, I just want to make it a bit more special. And I'm pausing now because I knew the technical term for what those holes are, but anyway, they feel pretty 90s, 80s to me. Kind of like those light machine guns from the Vietnam War. Quickly just repeating that texture and warping it, making it feel more like a cohesive, lightly armored suit. And because I have that color correction filter on top, I'm not too concerned with making sure the values and the saturation, the tones of every material is working 100% correctly. I can kind of cheat a little bit, not too much though. Just getting a flat chalk brush just to kind of take out some of that extraneous detail. Studs help things look a bit metal, I think. Of course, just taking out detail in the face, I want the end result to look more painterly. And so I'm just trying to squint my eyes a lot at this stage and see which shapes I can group together and average through values. And you can see here, this is where I'm trying to adjust that barrel and the ejection port, trying to get it all working together. And I'll still have the scope, have the mechanism to raise up, but I'm not going to have it on the same leveled line as that barrel. Yeah, I prefer things looking a bit scuffed up, a bit dirty, a bit painterly with my 3D and photo textures. I don't want it looking too clean. But there's some amazing artists who do such a great job of, it's almost like matte painting for their illustrations, and man, I just don't have the patience for that, to be honest with you. Just for my personal work, I like that slightly more painterly approach. You're gonna see that I'm gonna be painting over quite a bit of this to resolve things moving forward. Yeah, it's just funny how things look a lot better, at least to me, with that filter on. And so while doing this, I'm working with it mostly off, and yeah, it's just funny. I just got to trust in the process. And yeah, I found these great textures from these tanks that I think I got these from photoref.org. But yeah, you can see I'm going to be taking care of a lot of those bump issues by just adding those textures on top, and then I can always mask it out if I want to reveal some of that bump. Yeah, it's nice. And for these guys, either I'm color correcting it or I'm applying it on a luminosity layer. But yeah, I think for most of these I'm color correcting. And of course the bike is really scuffed up, so that reference image is great just for grabbing those bits. I love using blend options. It's just a great way to isolate, get rid of the darks or whites of an image, or let the darks or white of an image below show through. I'm sure most of you know about that. Yeah, Yep, same thing. Just getting some nice color variancy here now. Obviously, I gotta adjust the perspective a bit here. But yeah, the tank is such a great resource for a lot of things. I mean, there's so many interesting details I can utilize. Oh, I forgot about that piece. You know, I don't know where that piece went. I kind of like that, and I just got rid of it for some reason. Yeah, the photos here doing a lot of the heavy lifting. This is the difference I'm talking about. I mean, I could have easily, I guess not, or maybe not easily, but I could have sculpted that in 3D, but it took me mere moments, really, in Photoshop. So that's the type of stuff I was aware of while in the modeling stage. And of course, 3D is always going to be a lot more accurate, but I mean, I'm hoping that I got away with it a bit. Yeah, just trying to get a bit more painterly here, trying to add more dirty brush marks, just to break up the 3D. I really don't want this feeling too clean. Yeah, I'm so glad I found that decent reference for face, especially with lighting. I mean, photographers know how to light people's faces a hell of a lot better than I do. Right there, I just copied all the layers of the lady's face and applied a surface blur. Surface blur basically retains the sharp edges but knocks out all the extra detail. And yeah, for what I like to do, it works quite nicely. Hell yeah, I'm gonna steal that suspension for sure. And when I grab these bits, I don't really know how I'm gonna utilize them. I'm just playing around at this point. And I'm also thinking, oh god, I hope they don't judge me. Because my process is pretty ragtag, but it's all good. And then here I'm just trying to figure out the arm. First with paint. I mean, yeah, it depends. Sometimes I'll just figure things out with photo, or sometimes I'll figure it out with paint. It's all based on feeling, really, first and foremost, and then after the forms feel right, then I'll try to justify it with function. Again, knocking out a lot of that detail with texture brushes and the mixer brush. I'm also squinting my eyes, and you can see with his right hand or right forearm, as the form was descending into the shadow, you can kind of group those together, and that's why I softened that edge. You can see I'm going to be doing that repeatedly quite a bit. Squinting my eyes, you can see the forms, like the shapes. I'm trying to design interesting or pleasing shapes to the eye with everything. It's pretty funny how you just drop that in there. This guy's so shredded. It's so crazy. I think I just, yeah, put it on lighter opacity. I really enjoy finding the character through photos here. It's kind of a fun organic process. And right there I'm just grabbing detail. Look at that dude's face. He's just, I mean, that dude looks like a movie villain. It's hilarious. But yeah, in this case I'm just color correcting those, or at least changing the values so they fit, and then just applying it on a luminosity layer. Luminosity just, it retains the color information below, but it'll change the value information. Cool little bit from Boston Dynamics. There's actually quite a few cool little bits on that image. Little cross detail. It's good to repeat that sort of motif throughout. Yeah, I'm not trying to be too critical, too harsh, because I didn't really dive too deep in the design. Like a lot of the times, especially if I'm doing character design, I'll do a pretty tight line drawing, just even for myself, to prove myself right that the design works, and I'll design by form follows function. I'll try to not focus too much on the shapes, but focus on how things actually work. And I mean, that's how nature is, and you get really beautiful designs that way. But just for this process, I'm Tom Cruise. Yeah, just for this process, I'm looking for those shapes first and trying to find arguments. I literally just found the first face I could find. I don't even know why I had Tom Cruise on my hard drive, but it works fine. The lighting is going in the same direction, so hell, why not? Yeah, quick color correct, and choosing which parts to reveal, which parts to show. I'm trying to figure out the design here, and yeah, still focusing on shape, how things flow together. That arm piece is looking pretty janky. I mean, it still feels very, very 3D, so I definitely need the help of photos, or at least better drawing. I kind of liked his outfit, but I just felt it was too similar to the big dude, so I ended up changing it a bit later on. Give him that earpiece. I'm always trying to make the tech look the same. I don't want to give him a sort of modern day Bluetooth technology headset. I want it to feel a little bit more analog. Like everything's from the 80s. And here's where I'm definitely cropping it, and now I gotta mask things out. Gonna grab this big guy here and shuck him down a bit. And thank God for that clown pass, I was able to isolate that bike pretty easily. Would have been a pain in the ass to lasso around that. It's nice having that initial sketch go off. I mean, obviously you'd have a sketch. I've never really been one to just straight up work in Photoshop. I always need to sell myself on the idea from a very rough and rudimentary level. Yeah, right there. Here's where I decide, yeah, that dagger, or rather that knife's not working. The blade. And so yeah, the way I like using photos is I like to use texture brush work with photos, so you don't really know where if it's 3D, you don't really know if it's paint or photo textures. I kind of like playing with all those elements. Oh man, that bit of the angle looks terrible. Yeah, it definitely needs... That's a part definitely that needs some folding information from photography. Yeah, again, just knocking out the detail, especially with the hair and on our figure, trying to lose those edges. If you guys notice, I have this painting from the 19th century painter Solomon Joseph Solomon, and I forget the title of the painting, but it's been on my desktop forever, and that for me has always been kind of a benchmark on sort of where to hit visually, how I want my work to look. And it was nice finding that, because I just wanted to kind of, yeah, I wanted to find something that spoke to me personally, because at a certain point I found that I was maybe mimicking other concept artists' techniques, and I guess I'm always going to be doing that inherently. I mean, I'm looking at concept art on my Facebook feed all the time. It's hard not to get inspired by that stuff. Yeah, grabbing another photo texture, doing a liquify. I just wanted to get, yeah, not Tom Cruise 100%. And then in the mask, I got a pretty neat texture brush I use a lot. It's got a nice rake to it, and so I use that quite a bit to break things up. Yeah, just dance around the image. At this point, it's a lot of paint, and I'm gonna basically knock out as much 3D as I can. And then once it's got to a level of paint that I like, then I'll see, okay, that area specifically needs some photo texture or some higher fidelity. It's a little backwards, especially since I'm starting 3D, but it's all good. Yeah, that glove before was a bit too distracting, and I just like this one's reading a bit more simplistic, so it just feels better to me. Yeah, this stuff looks so much better with that filter. I know some artists like to color correct everything sort of at this level, but I've always been one to add a filter on top, just to sort of resolve things, keep things looking unified. Getting some iridescence with those pipes. And at this point also, I'm looking at the guy's design, I'm thinking, you know what, this is just, it's one, a bit too noisy, and two, it's just, it's calling for a bit too much attention. The focus and emphasis of the piece should be on the woman. And yeah, this guy's just looking like an octopus dude. And yeah, just wasn't feeling it. And so typically, if something's just not feeling right, I'll just go to the next bit and move around the canvas. I like to keep flowy, I like to keep loose. Yeah, still trying to make this work. I think I had a few more photo textures before I call it quits, but the mood's right, I feel. Whoa. Yeah, just grab another photo reference. And yeah, I'm averaging out those shapes with the highlights and shadow areas. And I think I grabbed some bits from a helicopter or a jet engine, and I'm just making that fit a little better. Yeah, the Apache helicopter's got a bunch of great little details that I like to use, and yeah, I'm gonna be looking at that image quite a bit. It also helps keep things a bit unified, which is nice. You don't want well, especially now since I'm no longer gonna make this look ragtaggy, so to speak. It's, you know, maybe the same manufacturer did his whole arm, something like that, so it might help the overall aesthetic. And you can see changing the design so that this vest is a bit longer, and it's got that top piece that sort of it looks a lot more like the original design, but still I'm focusing more on texture. I'm not gonna be putting in as much red. Yeah, in this case, sometimes with photo textures, a lot more wrong than I am right when it comes to just figuring it out. I like that bit. It helps the wheel look a bit more rugged. Put some dust and grit, dirt, mud on that. Anything to make this sit a bit better. Yeah, just use a texture brush to mask that out. I'm going to be painting over that quite a bit because I'm not going to be using a typical blur effect like a lens blur. I'm going to approach this more like a painting in that the central focus, which is the main hunter gal, she's going to be having most of the detail, and because the two dudes in the background aren't the focus, I'm going to be using more large brush strokes to separate them, background, foreground things. And a lot of when I'm putting things down, I kind of have a basic knowledge of how, I hope it's more intermediate knowledge of how human anatomy works, and I like to look at a lot of robot arms systems from companies like DARPA or Boston Dynamics. I'm trying to go for a more interesting detail bit for that barrel. I gotta be careful to make sure that the textures are fitting nicely when I put them down. Basically, especially for things like tech, you want those edges feeling right. It's really hard to paint fine detail like that. And so as a rule of thumb, generally for myself, it's those areas I like to reserve for photo texture, just to get that high bit of detail. Yeah, little tiny metal square studs just to break up that design. Again, keeping the ratios working decent. Little cross seam down the middle of the vest just to kind of keep that motif going on. Repeating shapes throughout. And here, yeah, I'm just adding a bit more detail to the face, just trying to get the ocular attachment fitting correctly. Making it look like there's some heavy duty surgery done on his face to accommodate it. Yeah, using the same helicopter bit. I totally understand why people would sculpt that out, and it's so fun to do so, but again, for the purpose of what I'm trying to do, it's totally fine for me to use photo textures and well, a little bit bullshit. Bullshit that area. Make it look decent. Yeah, that bit, there's a lot of, when I'm squinting my eyes now, there's some small details, especially on that right arm of his that, well, at least the front of that deltoid, it's kind of distracting. So I need to remedy that for sure. Just trying to make that joint piece a bit more interesting visually. Another rule of thumb for me is if I'm giving a large area and I'm making it an area of rest, when I go to that detail point, that point of fidelity, I really want to hit that hard with something interesting. I call it a payoff zone. Like your eyes dance around the canvas until you get to that zone of high fidelity, and you know it better be a decent payoff for the viewer. And yeah, that like really needed some photo texture, really needed those wrinkles. It definitely benefited. It's a really cool pistol called the Rhino, I think. I just love how it's more or less does exactly what I want to do with the piece. It's taking something old and kind of putting a modern day / futuristic spin on it, but still keeping it looking really rugged and beefy. Got to make sure to paint out that crunchiness of the photo texture. Sometimes a crunchiness can be good though. Like you pop down even a low resolution photograph and it provides some nice hue and saturation and brightness variance. And actually I think on the filter, yeah, definitely on the filter on the top, that purple group you see in my layers, I have a canvas texture that's really crunchy, and I like that. It kind of gives the overall piece a nice grit. Yeah, and for a lot of the gun, I'm looking at a lot of 80s boomboxes and weapons manufactured in the 80s, just trying to keep that aesthetic, and even though I'm trying to push it a bit more into the futuristic realm. Yeah, that guy's feeling a lot better. To me, he's feeling a bit more suitable for the scene, and now he's not really calling for too much attention. And the attention kind of goes to the visor, which I like. Yeah, still working on that face, trying to get everything to sing properly together. And here's where I try second pass for that rotator bit. Oh, guess that was a fail. See right there, I just didn't like it, didn't know what to do, moved on. I don't want to dwell too much. It'll come to me later. Trust in the process. And here I just decided maybe it'd be kind of interesting if the robotic arms were just a bit of a different color. You know, you still get that sense of skin tone, but it's just just a bit different. And Here I'm just using a scattered texture brush for the smudge. And again, I'm just trying to knock out those edges, trying to make your eyes dance a little bit. Move around, flow freely throughout the picture. And yeah, great, really nice bullet holes from, like, God only knows what could have made that on a tank, but yeah, really interesting. Yeah, blend options there just to knock in some of that detail, make it sit decently nice in there. And right there, I just added a lighten layer and just averaged out those shadow shapes, the black parts of the background image. And I think it's working okay. Full disclosure, I don't know what's going on there. Like for this, I just know I want some structural support for whatever's going on with the engine. So yeah, I guess when I add photos, I wonder if the ratios are the same as, like, I wonder if it's 80-20, like I'm keeping 80%, painting 20 for those detailed bits, but I definitely don't want the photo to be too obvious. And here's where I start to change that pose a bit and change its design. Here's where I'm thinking, dummy, why don't you just reference the OG design for the movie? I thought it was too weird of a challenge to try out, but I think it ends up looking okay. Sort of like buckles. This guy needs a bit more photo texture. He's looking a bit too different from the rest of the crew. But just a bit though, just in a few select spots. Yeah, this is helpful for sure. Might as well use that. And here I'm just trying to figure out the design. I don't think I'm going to give him that deep V. It's a little tricky because in the render I kept the light from the motorcycle and it's kind of creating this atmosphere, and so I had to create a light layer to sort of pump up the blacks of that area of the image, just so that it doesn't look too janky. You can see there. It's a bit of a weird process. I would have done it differently had I done this again, but it's fine. Yeah, the filter saves this image quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot I get away with because I'm crunching a lot of the detail with curves. I don't like to use it as a crutch though. I mean, the image has to look decent at this stage. And yeah, why not put a bit of spikes? I think it fits okay. Just get a tiny bit of punk, tiny bit of metal, tiny bit of attitude. Here I'm just looking at more reference of the guy. Yeah, right there. Get some more knife details. Yeah, I'm not sure if I find what I'm looking for here, because I think at this point I'm more or less copying the design from the movie, which should have been my personal challenge from the get-go, instead of just totally changing the design. Getting rid of that piece there. And I'll definitely probably drop a photo texture on that arm just to get it read and write. Again, just knocking out that detail, knocking out that 3D where I don't need it. Scuffing things up, adding dust, dirt, grime, whatever. Oil. And pretty much at this point, I can, mostly just paint things in. Yeah, just copying that munition damage over. Burn and dodge to get those values sitting right, to get the form feeling right. Yeah, the arms are working okay. He's kind of got a bit of a different flair, but yeah, I think it's all right. Now I'm just doing the same thing, squinting my eyes and trying to get those shapes to read nicely. Yeah, and those small little bits definitely help a lot in indicating detail. And I just felt like the bud area needed a bit more, yeah, fidelity, bit more information. So here I'm just popping in some seam textures. Yeah, basically where the light's hitting in a strong way. Unless you don't want the viewer's eye to go there, then don't worry about it. Yeah, that leg's feeling a lot better to me now. Would have been pretty difficult to paint that in, or at least time consuming. Getting that hand to fit a bit better. It was kind of janky in 3D, but I can sort of fake it here in Photoshop. And yeah, just utilizing some bits from that tank photo reference and just playing around, just see if I can get some interesting shapes going on. You know what this exercise taught me? It taught me to definitely learn more about bikes, because I felt like it would have been a lot more interesting to base the forms off function. But again, it's all good. Hope you guys listen to some music as this is going on. It's actually what I'm doing while I'm recording this, and in my headphones. Yeah, just sometimes I want to give information, but I don't want to sound redundant. I mean, I feel like you guys pretty much get the gist of what I'm trying to do most of the time. So I'm just trying to call things out when I see it. Yeah, these detail bits really help. Would have been pretty difficult to model. And yeah, just getting those highlight bits of that gun and just applying it on choice areas of the picture. Yeah, I'm thinking there, right behind his head, there could be an element of some kind, just to break it up, add some interest, some variancy. And just making sure that the line is reading right, perspective-wise. Yeah, still dancing around the canvas, trying to find areas to hit. Adding bits of detail from photo textures where I can, where it makes sense. And I think sometimes at some points I'm trying to unify things, trying to make things look good, make the elements work, but sometimes it gets a bit distracting. And so, yeah, it's a game of push and pull at this point. Trying to massage areas and just have a bit more patience. Like right here, it's gonna be the hinge of a door, or I think initially it was the handle, but yeah, I ended up having it be the hinge. Yeah, I think this element was a bit too distracting. Just wanted to make the door feel functional. Yeah, right there, just gave up on there. Just took a break. And here I just masked out that area around those pipes, and I'm totally just playing around, just dropping photos into that bit on a clipping layer, and just seeing what feels right. Careful not to make the bullet holes look all the same. It'll get pretty obvious that you're copy and pasting things. Yeah, just giving that piece a bit more structure. Still trying to figure out the design. And knocking out that handle just wasn't necessary. At least for this stage. Yeah, making sure that texture works properly. I mean, I can kind of get away with adding some texture brush, but and the canvas texture definitely helps on top, but I still want to make it fit correctly. And here, there was a bit too many highlights popping out from that layer underneath, and so I just put a darkened layer and I'm selecting the base green color of that tank, and yeah, just knocking out some of that detail. I just don't want the attention to be called to that point. That's definitely not the hero of the piece. And oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, you can see there's a smoke group in green over there, and I just grabbed some smoke elements from Google, and also I have some smoke video elements that I just screen grabbed and put them in there. Nothing too fancy. I mean, I just sort of color corrected it, put it on a screen, and yeah, settle with that. But yeah, this is almost getting there. This is pretty much where I ended up with this piece, and I think it worked okay. It's been really fun doing this, and just want to thank everyone for joining me on this little adventure, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.